Politics. That is probably what most of you first envisioned when you heard the phrase, a house divided against itself cannot stand. I say that because honestly, I know I did. First, I thought of great empires. Then, I thought of great battle strategies. And after that, when I ran out of ideas, I even Googled it and I found out about Abraham Lincoln's speech, the one in which he was trying to say that slavery should not be tolerated. You see, it was all about empires, battles, and speeches. It all seemed to come down to just that. Politics. And I was going to talk about it, really. I was. But then this pretty important thing popped up in my head, and it reminded me of the fact that politics has never been my cup of tea. And I was never able to fully grasp its meaning. So what I'm trying to make you understand from the beginning is that my speech isn't about politics. It isn't about what happens on the outside, but it actually points to the one place which created the outside, and that is nothing else but our own minds. By the end of this speech, I will have proven to all of you that your minds are your greatest assets, but in no time, they can become your greatest enemies. I will be talking about the strength which finds its place in our intellect. And I have to tell you that I have chosen to discover the darkest of human nature, the scenario in which that power of ours slips out of our control and takes us to destruction. And therefore, my speech consists of two main arguments. The first one starts by introducing a type of person, a path thief, as I like to call it, and my second argument merely focuses on self-destruction. Well, I think that it is best for me to start with an example so that we can all be on the same wavelength. And I chose one which is the closest to my mind to our age group, and that is the conflict between generations, or the generation gap. Anyway, I'm sure that most of you, if not all, have heard of those stories of sons and daughters of very, very influential people who, instead of majoring in business or management, things that their parents want them to do, they just rather study arts, travel around the world, volunteer in Africa, that sort of crazy thing. Unfortunately, in most of the cases, as we all know, the parents' wills prevail against the hopes and aspirations of their children. So you might think, why did she bring this up? Why did she choose exactly this example? Well, I have chosen to generalize the type of path thief on the model of these parents. Because what these particular persons do not understand is that the moment they create a situation, and by that I mean any situation at all, in which we are forced, indeed forced, to deviate from our own paths and follow another, that exact moment, they turn us against ourselves. But I must clarify that this doesn't only happen by parents choosing for their children, but also by prejudices you are submitted to, peer pressure, or any other type of demon our society faces today. Well, it's time now to pass to my second argument. And I will be relating this one to Abraham Lincoln's speech. He was trying to say that slaves and free people could never coexist and form a united nation, because by definition, they were two completely opposing elements, and their interaction would only lead to the destruction of one of them, eventually. And to my mind, that is what happens in your head too, because you had your path, you had your way, you had your dream, but at some point, you were forced to take another. For example, let's say that you wanted to visit the main pyramids, but you are now stuck with the responsibility or with the obligation of getting a degree in management. And believe me, that tears you to little pieces. It is at that moment that you lose your inner self to your image. It is at that moment that you break up inside between what you want to do and what you ought to. It is at that moment that your house falls. But I wish to believe that at that moment, even if it is the 11th hour, I wish to believe that you are gathering your forces to pick yourself up. That's right, your house might have fallen, but this might just be the opportunity for you to build even a stronger one. Because you have to remember this. The only place you will never be able to escape is your own mind. Thank you very much.
If we do a lot of these things in our own minds as well, the way that we allow ourselves to go off our path, what kinds of messages do we often tell ourselves? What kind of refrain, perhaps?
It is your destiny, and it was meant to be this way, and maybe this is the path that you had to follow in the first place, and maybe that there are people next to you and they will support you no matter what, and then you'll get through all these crazy situations, if I were to call them that. Thank you for your question.
Okay, so I got the feeling from your speech that you encourage your listeners to go on their own path, and you suggested traveling to the Great Pyramids if that's your thing. But what would you advise a young man or a young woman in the current economical context where traveling to the pyramids isn't actually a job? How do you get the finances to live up to your path?
Well, to my mind, there is always this balance that you have to keep in your life. There are things that you want to do and that you have to do because you want to do them. And there are things that you have to do them because maybe there are people that tell you to do that because they have more experience, they've lived longer on this earth, and they know what's best for you. And to my mind, you should find a middle way between these two. I just chose visiting the Mayan pyramids as an example, maybe a utopian example if you were to say that, but to my mind, it is only the balance between these two things. You have to listen to the others, maybe your parents, because they have more experience, but also you have to discover who you really are. And I heard that most people have discovered that by traveling to the Mayan pyramids, and I just thought of putting it in there. Thank you for your question.